Greg Cosell of NFL Films, for a living, he breaks down NFL film.
Mop.
I don't know that he wants to break down the NFL film that we just watched.
Well, I think he does NFL. I don't know if he does TMZ. So maybe I'm wrong. Like, he does his NFL show, and he's in the lab. I don't know if he actually breaks down TMZ footage. We can ask him. I won't.
So what we're referring to is the fact that the body cam footage of Jed York's arrest has been released on the World Wide Web.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's 3 days after the incident.
Correct.
Kyle Shanahan had a car crash, and 11 days later, we actually found out about the accident.
That's really where your mind goes?
That's partly where my mind goes.
This is an arrest.
Right.
Something very illegal happened. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
It's not very illegal, but
it is very illegal. This was a sting operation.
It's illegal.
Yeah.
The thing that strikes me is when you're on the road and you do something that is noteworthy, then, like, there's a certain amount of things that happen.
I think when you do something illegal, or if there is an intrigue in something that's going on, body cam footage of Kyle Shanahan, quite frankly, would have been wildly uncomfortable to watch. Apparently almost lost his eye. I don't even want to see that. But anyway, what stood out to you with the Jed York thing?
A pretty pedestrian sort of thing where it's like, you're getting cuffed, and he's handcuffed, and he's in a T-shirt, and he's in, I think, sweatpants, and he just gets walked over to the police car. And then the last 10 seconds, you have the local officers kind of weigh in on their thoughts on the fact that he actually was here and he got arrested.
Well, they kind of weighed in with, I think, the same thought that goes through all of our minds. One of the officers, and I'm paraphrasing, this is not a direct quote, but he goes, "It's amazing how certain people go about doing this when they have the ability to do anything. They could do this any particular way, and they do this." And they're like, "Isn't that amazing?" And I think that 90% of us, that's probably one of the first thoughts that went through our heads. I don't know if you're offended by it. A lot of people were either offended by it. Some people, remember our caller is like, "This is what men do." It is like just completely.
Right.
So maybe you're not offended by it at all. But I do think it's a very normal response to be like, a billionaire on his phone in Palestine, Ohio, Palestine. I don't even know how to pronounce
East Palestine.
And he's in a parking lot. By the way, not just any T-shirt. A New York Yankees T-shirt.
Duh.
Yeah. That's what offended me the most.
The cops are here. What did I do wrong?
Very good. A few things. I mean, mainly one thing. But I would say the body cam footage went almost exactly as I would have imagined it.
Right.
Jed looks stunned. He does you can tell behind his eyes, it's bleep. They're like, "What are you doing here?" And he's kind of like, "I'm just driving." They're like, "You just driving around here?"
Yeah.
He's like, and then the body cam footage kind of skips forward to them cuffing him. Took him a minute to get the cuffs there on. But Jed was completely cooperative, again, appeared stunned, and I'm sure had some pretty racy thoughts going through his head in terms of, oh no, what have I done?
Right. And the other piece of it is you see the officer pull out the money, and he can kind of flash it to the camera, and he's like, "Yep." Basically, like, here's $160.
The exact amount.
And so he pulls out the money, and he's like, "Oh, yep." And so you can see a little bit of the glee from the sting because it was $160 and he brought 160. And I don't know if he didn't have more because when they arrested him, that's all he had. And so, the cops basically were like, "Yep, $160. We were charging him 160. We got him red-handed."
And they have the text messages.
Right.
Yeah, that's all you. I mean, there was a minute over the last couple of days where I thought to myself, okay, how did this look? You lure him to an address that doesn't exist. Therefore, how can you say that you've got him red-handed arriving at an address that doesn't exist? I mean, he ended up in a parking lot. I would think there's at least a reasonable doubt that could be created about what am I doing here? I mean, I took a wrong turn. I mean, you could do whatever, but the text messages,
right?
Like they have the text messages. You have the exact amount of money. It is beyond a reasonable doubt, and it appears that Jed York and his lawyers eventually agreed based on the way that they handled it.
Yeah, and I was talking to my father-in-law, Pop, about this earlier today, and he was asking me for my breakdown and as it pertained to Robert Kraft. And he said, what about Robert Kraft? And I said, well, Robert Kraft chose from his massage situation, he chose to fight it because he felt like there was an inadmissible video. And so he spent 18 months going about fighting it, and he won. So if you want to go that route, like could Jed York have said, I was just like driving around East Palestine looking for, aluminum cans because I'm passionate about recycling. And I heard there was a lot of cans there. And so that's why I was there. Like he could have tried to fight it in a certain way, but he looked at it and said, you know what? I'd rather like plead down and be done with it. But Robert Kraft, he fought it. So Robert Kraft was not ever charged or convicted, blah, blah, blah. But did that help his reputation there?
Well,
not at all.
I mean, to a degree, he gets to keep owning the team. He gets to keep being.
Well, and so does Jed for now.
For now. Does he continue to get to be the front-facing person with the Niners long term? I don't know. I really don't. This stuff gets affected by things like that. It really does. Here's a piece of it. This is the beginning of the arrest of Jed York over the weekend in Ohio.
Don't move. Don't do anything. Unbuckle slowly. Slowly.
Do it.
Step out of the car. Get out the car. Put your hands on the car.
Can I ask what you're doing?
Spread your feet for me.
Can I ask what you're doing?
What are you doing here?
Just driving.
You meeting anybody?
No.
Just driving. Are you meeting anybody? No. Turns out I'm meeting you guys.
Right.
So
that's all.
That's all from TMZ, the body cam footage from the police officers.
I think the piece that actually, quote, helps him is he does not sound belligerent at 9:30 in the morning. He is not combative. He's not evasive. He's a little bit like I think anybody would be, which is like, I mean, what's the problem? What are you guys doing? I'm just driving.
Yeah.
And until they're like, well, you're not just driving and you sought us out and here we are. And so now we go from that to this. And so I don't know. For me, it wasn't a situation where you hear him and he's like, well, I was just driving. No, he just was there.
Right. There's no DUI.
Right. And he got caught. And I don't think that beyond that, like what we played, then he gets out of the car and he gets cuffed and he just, he goes to the car.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I think all of our minds to a certain degree, when stuff like this happens, you wonder what's coming next. You know what I mean? You do wonder. Is this a one-time thing? Do you do this every day? Are people going to start coming forward? And I know a lot of people go, this wasn't the first time he did. I mean, probably not, but that's not even relevant because there's no proof to it. In other words, that to me is all you're now waiting for if you are the 49er organization. Is this going to go somewhere next, or is this the end of the line where you got caught doing something one time and this body cam footage is another step on the staircase? And I think to your point, nothing really bad happened here. Not belligerent, did not resist. There was just nothing. It's a stunned person who realizes he just messed up something awful, got out of the car, had cuffs put on him, end of story. Like the only way this can get worse is if 28 people come forward and suggest that this is happening constantly.
Yeah, and I was saying this to my father-in-law earlier about the Tiger Woods comp, and, Tiger Woods did not do this in terms of paying, but when we found out that he got in an accident and his then wife tried to rescue him from the car with a 9-iron, and then everything that unraveled beyond that was like, oh my goodness. And It seemed like one after another, it was like bam, bam, bam. And it turned out to be, I don't even remember how many other people who came forward. So if this becomes that, well, it's a different story. If this was a one-off and he made a mistake, I do think that he is a one-page statement away from, getting his six-week punishment, $1 million, whatever it is.
Yep. I mean, you're probably right. I mean, the other thing that's relevant, I hate talking about this stuff, to be honest with you, but what's like when you compare it to Tiger Woods or Deshaun Watson, in theory, the people who are the quote-unquote victims are not doing anything illegal. You're either a masseuse or a waitress or whatever. In this particular case, the people that, I mean, if Jed was going to see a lot of people, like, they're committing a crime too, in theory. So I sort of think this might be it. But the hell if I know. But that's kind of how I feel about it right now, based on seeing this.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to freak out about on this one from the standpoint of Jed York. Just more, I mean,
He's a real estate.
it's embarrassing. It already was.